The vanishing and the rumors, the galaxy remembered the name of the human battleship Atlas. It was not just a ship. It was a symbol. When Earth first built the Atlas, many alien empires laughed. They thought humanity was still too young, too fragile, too inexperienced to build anything that could matter in the grand scale of galactic war. But the Atlas proved them wrong. It was enormous, a floating fortress of black metal and heavy weapons, designed not for beauty but for survival. Wherever the Atlas arrived, battles ended quickly. Entire fleets hesitated when they saw its shadow. But then, one day, the Atlas vanished. It was during one of the most chaotic wars in the galaxy, when human colonies were under attack by several alien coalitions. The Atlas had been sent to hold the line near the edge of known space. Reports said it entered a battlefield filled with enemy ships. The battle started, explosions lit the dark void, and then silence. No distress call, no wreckage, no survivors, nothing. The largest warship of Earth was gone. At first, some believed it had been destroyed in combat. But even the strongest alien weapons could not have erased a ship that large without leaving something behind. The Atlas was too massive to disappear so completely. Still, with no evidence and no signal, the galaxy assumed it was gone. Decades passed. Alien historians recorded the Atlas as a failed project, a waste of human ambition. They called it proof that humans were reckless, building something too big to control, something destined to fall. Empires mocked the story of the missing warship, saying it showed how fragile Earth really was. Humans themselves carried the wound in silence, mourning the ship and the thousands of lives lost with it. But then, the rumors began. The first came from miners working in the cold reaches of a forgotten system. They claimed they had seen a giant shadow moving against the stars, larger than anything they knew. The shadow vanished before their scanners could capture it. Most dismissed it as error or fear. But whispers spread. Later, a trade convoy found a battlefield of destroyed ships drifting in the dark. The odd thing was that all of the ships belonged to an alien fleet that had been perfectly healthy days before. Their hulls were split open, their engines ripped apart as if by weapons no one had ever seen before. There were no survivors. There were no signs of raiders. Just silence, and the remains of power no species could explain. A single rumor connected it to the missing Atlas. Alien diplomats denied it, calling the rumors childish. But even they began to wonder. Centuries passed, yet the stories did not die. Smugglers swore they had seen golden trails of energy cutting across the dark. Soldiers spoke of invisible hands destroying whole fleets. Entire colonies claimed they had heard ghostly signals in the deep void. A voice repeating the name Atlas again and again. Each story was dismissed as impossible. And yet the galaxy could not let go of the idea. The humans had built a ship that vanished without trace, and the galaxy feared that maybe, just maybe, it had not been destroyed. The aliens were not the only ones who carried these rumors. Among humanity, the legend of the Atlas grew stronger. Parents told their children about the ship that would one day return. Veterans swore that the Atlas was not dead, only sleeping, waiting for the right moment. Some believed it had traveled beyond known space, into the dark, unknown regions where time and reality bent in strange ways. Others whispered that the crew had found something, an ancient secret, a forbidden weapon, a truth the galaxy was never meant to know. The mystery turned into fear. Even the most powerful empires who once mocked Earth secretly prepared plans just in case the Atlas ever returned. What if the humans had found something beyond natural laws? What if they had turned their lost warship into something even greater? No one had answers. Only silence filled the void. But silence can be more terrifying than noise. Silence makes people imagine, and imagination is often worse than the truth. So the galaxy waited. Every unexplained explosion, every sudden disappearance of ships, every strange reading from deep space, someone, somewhere, whispered the same name, Atlas. It became more than just a ship. It became a shadow over the galaxy, a story that refused to die, and then, one day, centuries after its disappearance, the silence finally broke. Scanners on a lonely outpost lit up with signals of something massive moving at the edge of the void. Not an asteroid, not a natural object, but something alive with power. The shape was sharp, angular, and familiar. The long-forgotten name began to rise once again on trembling lips. The rumors were about to end, because the Atlas was coming back. The impossible return. The outpost crew stared at their screens in disbelief. At first they thought it was a mistake. Signals sometimes bent through dust clouds or old satellites. But this was no error. The readings showed something vast, something moving with purpose. The object was larger than any known ship, larger even than the combined size of fleets. Its silhouette carried a strange beauty, sharp and deliberate like a blade drawn against the stars. The galaxy had waited for centuries, listening to rumors. Now the waiting was over. When the object broke through the darkness, scanners confirmed what no one wanted to believe. It was the Atlas, the human battleship that had vanished generations ago. Not wreckage, not ruins, intact. Its hull glowed with thin rivers of golden light, flowing like molten fire across black metal plates. Energy shimmered around it in a way no one had seen before. The ship looked both ancient and new, as if time had carved wisdom into its armor. Fear swept through the outpost. Messages were sent to nearby fleets. Within hours, dozens of alien empires had learned the news. For the first time in living memory, silence spread across the galaxy. Leaders who had mocked the legend were now pale, their voices trembling as they asked the same question: how? No one had an answer. The Atlas moved slowly, not like a ship returning home, but like a giant waking from deep sleep. Every sensor, every camera, every eye watched it in awe and dread. Its engines burned with fire that bent physics, producing trails of golden light that stretched far behind it. The energy was not like plasma or fusion. It pulsed in rhythms, almost alive, as if the ship carried something breathing inside its hull. Alien fleets rushed to the sector. Scouts kept their distance, their ships shaking under the pressure of unknown forces. The Atlas did not fire. It did not speak. It simply drifted forward, unstoppable, as though it had no concern for the world watching. Then came the first test. An alien commander, bold or perhaps foolish, ordered a group of warships to intercept. They spread out in formation, their weapons charged. The galaxy watched through broadcast feeds, billions of eyes focused on the encounter. The Atlas did not change course. The warships opened fire. Streams of plasma, missiles, and beams struck the black hull. Explosions lit the void. For a moment it seemed the legend might end with disappointment, the mighty Atlas overwhelmed by numbers. But when the light faded, the truth was revealed. The Atlas was untouched. The golden rivers along its hull flared brighter, like veins of fire. And then with a soundless force it answered. Beams of light erupted from its edges, silent, swift, and merciless. They did not resemble normal weapons. They were not lasers, not missiles. They were pure energy, shaped like arrows bending space as they moved. One by one the alien ships split apart, their shields melting, their hulls torn open as though touched by a god's hand. It was not destruction. It was erasure. Ships vanished into burning fragments within seconds. The galaxy fell silent again. Only one alien ship survived, limping away with half its hull missing. Its crew transmitted frantic reports, voices shaking as they described the impossible. They spoke of weapons that ignored shields, energy that broke natural laws, power that could not belong to any known species. Their words spread like wildfire, and with every retelling, fear grew stronger. The Atlas had returned, and it carried weapons no one should possess. Scientists tried to explain. Some said humans had unlocked forbidden energy, a force buried in the structure of the universe itself. Others believed the ship had left the galaxy, venturing into realms beyond known space, and had come back with stolen knowledge. Religious leaders declared it proof of prophecy. Ordinary people whispered of curses, of ghostly powers, of humans striking deals with something ancient. But the truth was simple and terrifying. The Atlas was real, and it was more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Among humans, the news struck like thunder. Earth's people gathered in streets and cities, watching the broadcasts with tears and pride. The ship they thought lost forever had returned. Families who had mourned generations ago now spoke their ancestors' names with trembling voices. To them, the Atlas was not only a ship. It was proof that humanity survived against the impossible. For alien rulers, the return was a nightmare. Councils and emperors held secret meetings. Should they attack together before the humans became unstoppable? Or should they beg for peace before it was too late? The galaxy had always believed humans were reckless, but now with one ship, humanity had forced every empire to hesitate. And still the Atlas gave no explanation. It did not speak. It did not slow down. Its path was steady, aimed at the heart of The missing battleship had returned, and the galaxy was no longer the same. The first encounter, the galaxy could not look away. Every empire, every soldier, every civilian with access to a screen followed the path of the returning warship. The Atlas was more than a ship now. It was a storm drifting silently through space. No empire wanted to be the first to face it, but none could ignore it either. If this ship reached Earth, humanity would hold a weapon far beyond the balance of power. A council of alien leaders met in secrecy. Voices shook as they argued. Some demanded a united strike before the humans could grow stronger. Others warned that attacking might provoke a war no one could survive. The memory of those destroyed ships weighed heavy in the room, yet fear always drives action. Finally, one decision was made. An armada of mixed fleets would confront the Atlas, not as raiders, not as scouts, but as a wall of strength. Hundreds of ships gathered in formation along the path of the Atlas. They came from rival empires that had once hated each other, but fear had united them. Cruisers, carriers, frigates, every vessel they could send armed with the most advanced weapons of their age. Their commanders believed numbers would make a difference. They believed even the impossible could be broken under enough firepower. The Atlas kept moving. When the armada appeared on its scanners, it did not turn. It did not prepare weapons. It did not send warnings. It simply advanced, glowing like a mountain of black steel carved with rivers of fire. The commanders grew restless. They sent demands through the void, calling on the humans to identify themselves. There was no reply. They sent warnings, still silence. The armada was used to power, to being obeyed. Silence felt like mockery. And then the first shot was fired. A destroyer from the front line launched missiles, streaks of bright light racing across the void. They struck the hull of the Atlas. The explosions were massive, shaking the surrounding space. But when the fire cleared, the ship remained untouched, the golden veins on its hull glowing even brighter. That was all it took. The armada unleashed its fury. Plasma beams burned the dark. Missiles shattered in clouds of fire. Railguns hurled metal faster than light. The void became a storm of destruction, and the Atlas was at its center. Every screen across the galaxy showed the same image, an ancient human ship drowning in fire. But the storm could not drown it. The Atlas woke. Its golden rivers pulsed, spreading like veins of lightning across its surface. The energy twisted and bent space itself, and then in silence the ship answered. Beams of light cut outward. They were thin, elegant, and terrifying. They did not travel straight, but curved, bending through space as if the laws of motion had no meaning. Wherever they struck, ships simply ceased to exist. Shields flickered uselessly, armor shattered like glass. Whole cruisers broke apart in seconds. Carriers vanished in brilliant bursts. The armada tried to retreat, but the Atlas was faster. It did not fire wildly. Every shot was precise. Every beam found its mark. It was not just attacking, it was judging. Within minutes, what had been a fleet of hundreds was reduced to drifting wreckage and burning fragments. Only a few ships survived, fleeing at full speed, their commanders desperate to save themselves. But they could not escape what they had seen. Their reports spread quickly. The Atlas could destroy fleets alone, and its weapons were unlike anything in recorded history. The galaxy trembled. The Atlas still gave no signal. No message, no explanation, no human voice to speak. It moved forward as if the armada had been nothing more than dust. But the meaning was clear. Humanity had returned with power that could not be challenged. For the first time, fear spread not only among aliens, but within human allies as well. Colonies whispered, had the ship come back as protector or conqueror? Could even Earth itself control a vessel armed with such unnatural power? What if the Atlas no longer belonged to humanity, but to something greater, something beyond understanding? Alien leaders watched in terror. If humans commanded this kind of weapon, the balance of the galaxy was broken forever. If humans did not command it, if the ship acted on its own, then the galaxy faced something even worse. A machine that carried secrets from outside known space. A ship that fought like a god. In the silence that followed the battle, one truth rose higher than fear. The Atlas was unstoppable. It had erased an armada that should have crushed it. It had done so without effort, without words, and it was still moving toward human space. The galaxy held its breath. Every screen, every station, every leader watched its golden trails stretch across the stars. The rumors of centuries had been replaced by living proof. Humanity's missing battleship had not only returned, it had returned with weapons beyond the galaxy's laws, and nothing could stand in its path. The message of humanity. The galaxy held its breath as the Atlas advanced. It had destroyed fleets, it had ignored demands, it had broken the laws of science with weapons that should not exist. Yet through it all, the ship had remained silent. To many, that silence was the most frightening part. A weapon can be feared, but a weapon with no voice, no face, no reason, that is terror itself. Then, without warning, the silence ended. The Atlas sent a signal. Not a blast of energy, not a threat, but a simple broadcast that reached across the void. It was not scrambled, not coded, not hidden. Every species, every empire, every corner of the galaxy heard the same thing. The voice was human, calm, steady, and filled with a weight that made listeners feel both comfort and unease. We are humanity. We are the crew of the Atlas. We were not destroyed. We were taken. Those words struck like lightning. Billions leaned closer to their screens. Empires froze in their chambers. The voice continued. We were pulled beyond the edge of known space into a place where time does not move as you understand it. We found darkness there, something ancient, something watching. It tried to break us. It failed. The galaxy shivered. The voice did not explain what it was. Perhaps it could not be explained. But the meaning was clear. The humans had been trapped somewhere outside of the galaxy's knowledge, and they had survived. The message went on. We learned. We adapted. The Atlas is not the same ship that left you. Its heart beats with knowledge no one here should have touched. But we did not choose this. We endured it. And now we return. The golden rivers of energy across the ship's hull pulsed brighter, as if in rhythm with the words. The message was not filled with anger. It was not filled with pride. It was heavy with truth, the kind of truth that bends the air around it. Alien rulers listened with dread. If the humans spoke the truth, they had reached beyond natural law. They had stolen fire from the void itself. Some feared that humanity would use it to dominate. Others feared they would unleash something none of them could control. The voice paused. Then it spoke again, slower, firmer. These weapons you have seen are not meant for conquest. They are not toys of war. They are shields. They are warnings. We will defend ourselves, and if need be, we will defend this galaxy. But know this, humanity has changed. The Atlas carries the weight of what lies beyond, and if you force us to use this power, you will not survive. The words echoed across every star system. To some they sounded like mercy. To others like a threat dressed in calmness. No one could deny what the humans had already shown. They had defeated fleets without effort. If this was their restraint, what would happen if they unleashed their full strength? Among humans, the message spread like fire. Crowds gathered in cities, listening with tears in their eyes. They had thought their people lost, swallowed by war and silence. But their kin had returned, carrying knowledge greater than dreams. To them, the Atlas was not just a ship. It was a promise. Humanity could never again be dismissed as weak or reckless. They had stepped into the dark, and they had come back stronger. But in alien halls, the message was poison. Some leaders swore to prepare for war. They whispered that the humans were lying, that they wanted domination. Others urged surrender, believing that resistance would mean extinction. Fear split alliances. Old enemies turned to each other, bound by the terror of one question. If humans could do this with one ship, what would they become with many? And yet, despite the fear, despite the whispers, no empire dared to attack again. The image of the broken armada still lingered. The memory of ships vanishing into golden fire silenced even the boldest generals. The Atlas continued its journey, silent again after its single broadcast. It moved like a living thing, its golden veins glowing against the black. Every step forward sent ripples of panic and awe across the stars. Some called it a savior. Some called it a monster. Some called it a god. But whatever name they chose, one truth was carved into every heart. Humanity had spoken. They had returned not as victims, not as wanderers, but as survivors of something larger than the galaxy itself. And in their silence and their warning, there was a promise. The balance of power had shifted forever. The empires of the galaxy waited in fear. The humans of Earth waited in hope. And all eyes followed the path of the battleship that had vanished into the dark and come back carrying the impossible. The Atlas was almost home. The new balance of power. The Atlas moved steadily across the stars, each golden trail it left behind burning like a scar across the night sky. To the galaxy, those trails were more than light. They were warnings, proof that humanity had gone where no one else dared to go and returned with fire no one else should possess. The ship did not need to shout its power. Its silence was enough to shake empires. Across the galaxy, fear spread like a storm. Alien rulers held emergency councils. Commanders studied the wreckage of the destroyed armada, whispering about weapons that erased ships as if they had never been built. Priests called the Atlas an omen, proof that the universe itself had chosen humans for some greater purpose. Traders spoke in hushed voices, wondering if the humans would one day demand tribute from every world. The galaxy had seen powerful empires rise and fall, but none had ever returned from the impossible. None but humanity. On Earth, the return of the Atlas lit cities in celebration. Families who had lost ancestors aboard the vanished battleship wept with pride. Children shouted the name of the ship in the streets. For them, the Atlas was not only a legend made real, it was proof that humanity would never again be mocked or doubted. They had endured what the galaxy could not imagine. They had carried the weight of the unknown and come home with strength that made even the oldest empires tremble. But not all hearts were filled with joy. There were whispers among the human councils themselves. Could the Atlas truly be trusted? Its crew had survived something no one understood. They had spoken of an ancient darkness that tried to break them. Had they escaped it, or had they brought a piece of it back with them? The weapons that bent the laws of reality were both miracle and curse. Humanity had the power to protect itself, yes, but could that same power one day consume them? Still, the galaxy did not see humanity's doubt. It only saw strength. And strength is enough to change everything. One by one, alien empires began to shift. The proud ones who had once mocked Earth now sent envoys with gifts and apologies. They offered trade, alliances, and promises of peace. Others remained silent, choosing to watch from a distance, fearful of even speaking the human's name aloud. A few plotted in secret, their fear twisting into hatred, but even they hesitated. No one wanted to be the next armada burned into dust. The balance of power had changed. Where once humans were dismissed as reckless newcomers, they now stood as something far greater, not because of numbers, not because of colonies, but because of one ship, one symbol, one legend that had returned from the dark. The Atlas slowed as it neared the borders of human space. Thousands of ships gathered to welcome it. Civilian vessels, military escorts, colonies sending their fleets, all surrounding the returning giant. The sight was overwhelming. A lone battleship lost for centuries now returned to its people like a ghost stepping out of myth.